Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots. Blue Liquor Shills, Dust Lace, Certified and Vassals. I'm a useful idiot, and I didn't really set out to do a series on different aspects of our surveillance society, but it's just kind of turned out that way. And I've been on a string of topics having to do with not only the National Security Agency and all the spying that's just revealed, but a history of spying and different whistleblowers and different hearings. And this tells us a couple things, of course, that these things have been around for a while, and we've already been exposed to it, and yet the public seems to forget over and over, as does Congress, that these things have been going on for quite some time. So it once again begs one to ask questions about recent events involving Mr. Snowden and the like. And another thing, of course, this shows us is that year after year, decade after decade, administration after administration, president after president, both so-called parties march down the aisle arm in arm to facilitate the surveillance and police state. So anyway, let me get to this latest bit of information, and that's about kind of where we have a demarcation point of where the so-called police surveillance state started, at least in this case the surveillance state, and that would be the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act of 1994. This is under Bill Clinton, so not only is it under a liberal who created a program that continued to operate and expand under Republican Bush. Now it's back in the hands of a liberal who continues to operate and expand it, and so it goes. And so this also shows us this goes back 20 years, and that this superseded a program before that, because all government programs have generally existed for a while. They just have one that supersedes another, adapting to new technologies. And this one is no different. In fact, it's the widest expansion of government electronic surveillance powers since the Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968. And that mandated carefully limited conditions for wiretaps. So this is how it goes, as new laws addressed to new technologies. And so now we have government has coercive powers in ordering telecom providers to devise solutions to law enforcement's emerging technology-related problems. So that's what this Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act of 1994 did. It requires that carriers, cellular phone services, and telecom companies enable the government to intercept, quote, all wire and oral communication carried by the carrier concurrently with the transmission, unquote. So, you want to tap into all electronic systems, and they require that private companies accommodate them. And this is one of the things that I thought was rather interesting as well, that carriers are responsible for development and implementation costs of this government-required Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act of 1994. So this government coercion, unconstitutional coercion for private companies to bear the costs of government-forced programs is nothing new. And just another part of slowly developing central planning, socialist, fascist forms of addressing issues. So the wording in Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act of 1994 specify that telecom carriers and manufacturers design their equipment, facilities, and services. So, as I was just relating, the fact that the government was specifying that all these telecom carriers and manufacturers design their equipment, facilities, and services and absorb those costs so as to guarantee they have the necessary surveillance capabilities. Even common carriers, broadband internet access providers, and providers of voice-over internet protocol services have now been designated as telecommunications companies so that they can spy on these service carriers as well. So, and interestingly enough, the entire internet is weakened by the compliance. All the experts have said that the fact that they have to make certain vulnerabilities in the entire telecom system. Uh, this only affects all of us in the fact that we're a lot more exposed because of these mandatory government backdoors built into everything. And they're also, another way this is unconstitutional and coercive is it's forcing private sector solutions to public sector problems. And we've seen that more and more and more in the last 20 years, and certainly recently. And then one of the other unconstitutional and coercive things about this law is that even posing a $10,000 a day penalty on non-compliant carriers. So if companies do not comply with this request, they will be fined $10,000 a day. So pretty obvious development and coercive activity there. And then to put icing on the cake, once again we have the first systems installed for compliance to the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act of 1994 come from the Israeli company Verint Incorporated. So I will include the video I did about Israel and Israeli companies at the heart of the NSA scandal below, because it turns out they've been at the heart of surveillance in the United States for at least the last 20 years, and something, of course, that was apparent in my other video. So, as I mentioned, we have the continuity of agenda from administration to administration to administration. It doesn't matter who's in power. The programs such as this have been expanding greatly, and we find ourselves where we are now. There is a liberal conservative consensus, and generally it seems like everybody seems to be on board with this, and people feel like if they don't have anything to hide, then they're fine with it, etc. And we'll see plenty of events to justify this kind of surveillance. And once again, we find that Obama's lying, because we find that these surveillance programs have been going on for a long time, and they collect data in real time as well. And it was laid out as far back as 1994 and, with the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act. And there's plenty of examples before that, I assure you. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too. And remember, if I agreed with you, then we'd both be wrong.